Welcome back to The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. Last time, we went through the Forsaken Fortress and ended up on Windfall Island, where we met the King of Red Lions, our boat, who leaded us to Dragon Roost Island, the island that we're on right now. Because apparently there's some special pearl or something like that that we're supposed to get. And some of you more avid Zelda fans, if you know your geography, might know what this island is supposed to be reminding you of. If you compare the map of Wind Waker and something like Ocarina of Time, you'd notice that this island is on the top right of the map, kind of like where Death Mountain is in Ocarina of Time. This is basically what remains of it, kind of like how Windfall is supposed to be what remains of Kakariko, I guess. Although its location is more like Castletown than Kakariko. Either way, there's a lot of similarities that this island shares with Death Mountain. One of the main ones being the clouds in the sky, which you can kind of see from here. In Ocarina of Time, the clouds on Death Mountain were meant to represent the status of the mountain. So if the clouds were calm, it means that everything was fine. And if the clouds were weird, red and glowy, it pretty much meant that Death Mountain was in some sort of trouble. And the same thing kind of applies here. The ring of clouds around the mountain is kind of stormy, which means that things aren't going as well as they could be. Although it's not as cool as the red glowy stuff from Ocarina of Time, in my opinion, but it's stylized. I like the way that the clouds are kind of, how should I put it, spiky, I guess you could say. Can I see them from here? Jagged, I guess would be the word that I'm looking for. Either way, this is the place where all the Rito live. It's essentially the post office of this flooded Hyrule. And this is the chieftain of the Rito. It's kind of weird that the Rito live on this island, because this island is supposed to be associated with the Gorons, you'd think, because it's Death Mountain, that's where the Gorons lived. But as we'll see soon, the Rito aren't associated with the Gorons. There's a character who we'll meet in a little bit that has a symbol that is very reminiscent of a different race in the Zelda series. And also the name of these people is a big tell as to who they are. Rito sounds kind of familiar if you've played Ocarina of Time. And apparently the dragon Valoo is kind of having a hissy fit right now. There's this process that the Rito have to go through, which is basically once they come of age, they go up the mountain and pick a scale off of Valoo. And once they get that scale, that's how they're able to fly. But because Valoo is, I guess, angry, they can't exactly get up to him to grab a scale, so no Rito are going to be able to fly. At least, the young ones aren't going to be able to fly if we don't do something about Valoo. One of the young ones that we need to be helping is actually the chieftain's son. His name is Komali. And he's not exactly the most likable character in the game. At first, at least. This Medley character sounds a lot more interesting than the Komali kid. I'll gladly go meet her right now. She's right up in this room. Also, Quill, which is the name of the postman that we met on our island, gave us the delivery bag, which is kind of a key item bag, I guess you could call it. There are consumables that will be put in that bag, but it's odd to say what goes in there. Basically, if it's not a monster part, and if it's not bait, it's going in that bag. For example, this father's letter is going to be going in that bag. And hurry up and finish talking. I want to get a picture of you too. Not to sound weird or anything. I don't like you. You're dishonest because you can't see my outfit. As you might have noticed, she says that there's a shirt with a blue crawfish. Originally she says green clothes and a weird hat, as I recall. And let me get a picture. That's perfect. Okay. We'll deal with that favor that she wants us to do later. First, we need to talk to Prince Komali about whatever's troubling him. Through this weird looking door that has a face on it. Oh, I forgot to mention the symbol. The symbol was actually on Medley, and it's the same symbol that... Well, not really the same symbol, but it looks exactly like the Zora Sapphire. Let me equip this letter. And here you go, Mr. Prince Man, who's holding the pearl associated with Din. Again, Gorons, even though the Rito are kind of associated with the Zoras, and that's all I'll say about that. This game's a decade, well, not a decade, over a decade old, so I don't know why I'm trying to be coy with my words, but you know, you never know when this is someone's first game, or someone's first Let's Play that they're watching. I'll get a picture of you too. Yep, that's perfect. And that's all the pictures that I'm going to be taking for this playthrough. At least the ones that are pertaining to the thing that the pictures are actually... We'll get to that when we get to that. I shouldn't talk about it right now. Let's head to where Medley wanted us to go, which should be right over here. I wanted to talk about Prince Komali for a little bit. It's kind of a sad situation that he's in. He tried to go up to Valoo to try and get a scale, and obviously Valoo is not gonna let him get a scale because of the state that he's in. So he was kind of traumatized. And I think that's sort of the first time that's happened to anyone. The whole, you know, Valoo raging out at someone. So nobody really understands it, not even his father, who can't even talk to him about it. He instead sends a letter to his son. It's... I don't want to say adults, it's just... It's not as happy-go-lucky as this game might have you think. And Medley thinks that she can help calm down Valoo because she can apparently speak his language, being an attendant to Valoo after all. Medley's an interesting character. First, let's change the direction of the wind, because in this area the wind is constantly changing direction, and so we need to either time our throw so that we get her to fly with the wind, or we could just change the wind ourselves and force it in that direction so that we don't have to time anything. I forgot what I was saying before. Oh, Medley, yes. She was an apprentice to Prince Komali's grandmother, apparently. And she kind of feels that it's her fault that Valoo is like this and that Prince Komali can't be all winged, I suppose. Let's get that bottle out and scoop up some water. So she's a little hard on herself for what's going on. Thanks to this bottle, though, we can actually follow her up. She doesn't have a sword or a shield, she can't protect herself. So what we're going to do is we are going to splash some water on one of these bomb flowers, which we encountered earlier. They pretty much work the same way as they did in Ocarina of Time, except I think the fuse is a lot shorter in this game. Back then it was like 8 seconds, and now it's only 4, I believe. Thanks to that rock being blown up, the spring has returned, although the water does look very dirty. We're gonna have to swim through it anyway to get to the other side. Thank goodness for Link's competence, I guess. because otherwise this game would not be happening. We need to play a little basketball, throw these into those pots, and I horribly missed. Let's actually get up to the line here and throw. There we go. Taking game logic at face value, we should not be able to stand on these. Being so close to lava would actually burn you. But it's a video game, who cares? And here is the first dungeon of the game, or at least what I count to be the first dungeon, because the Forsaken Fortress does not count to me. It's more of a... well, it is a dungeon, just not the first, and let's leave that there. This place might invoke some familiar feelings as well, because the music here, well, whatever could be passed off as music, is actually from Dodongo's Cavern in Ocarina of Time. So there's a neat little callback for you, and hopefully these guys drop the thing I want to drop, and they didn't. Well, now that we have their torches, we can light these up and make a treasure chest appear so that we can get the heck out of this room. In this room there's also this pot here, which doesn't do anything right now. We'll, I guess, unlock more pots later. They're basically teleport points. So when you have a bunch of pots opened, I guess you could say, because they are closed right now, you can't actually go through them, we'll be able to warp back to the beginning of the dungeon, which is very useful. Some Zelda games don't have that. I notice it most in 2D games, actually, that there's warps in the dungeons. Most other ones don't have that. We could break through this wood, and this is the kind of central area of the dungeon. What with all the lava. It is breaking the status quo a little bit to have the fire dungeon be the first dungeon in the game. So that's pretty neat. But honestly, it's not one of the best dungeons. The early few dungeons in this game aren't super great in my opinion. For me, the game kind of starts at the middle. And I think a lot of people would agree with that because you're kind of restricted for these first couple of dungeons in the game. The King of Red Lions can't even go anywhere right now. Like, if you try to board him, he won't let you. All you can do is talk to him. And eventually when we are able to board him again, he'll kind of streamline us, I guess you could say. Like, if we go too far in a certain direction, he'll say, we're not supposed to go there, turn around, and then you're forced to go in whatever direction he tells you to go. And it's only in the middle of the game where you're allowed free reign. These water pots, you throw them on the lava, and they create little platforms for you so that you can get across. And up there is an enemy. That's quite a beginner's trap. If you climb up the ladder as fast as you can, then the enemy will actually hit you. So you gotta wait a little bit. And we got our first drop from these choo-choos. That was red chew jelly. If we collect a bunch of those, we can take them to the potion shop, and we'll be able to create some chew jelly out of them. Or rather, I think we'll be creating a potion, not really chew jelly. And here's the drop that I was looking for from the Bokoblins. This is a joy pendant. We actually need these to complete the game. You need 20 of them, and over the course of the game you will probably actually get 20. It's not that hard. And there are a couple ways to grind, one of which in this dungeon I'll be showing that off later. The choo-choos drop their jelly a lot. Like, it's a very common drop for them, unlike the Bokoblins, who just drop their joy pendants on occasion, really. And it kind of sucks that they do that, but we will be getting an item in this dungeon that deals with that problem, I guess you could say. It doesn't make it better, honestly, because there's still a chance that you could get more items if you decide not to steal the item. That's pretty much what the dungeon item allows us to do. It allows us to steal items from enemies. Though that's not its main purpose, it's more of a side purpose. But we won't be getting that item until more than halfway through the dungeon, which is kind of odd. But this dungeon is all about breaking the status quo apparently, so it's not too big of a deal. And I got hit, that kind of sucks. Ah, this is what I was talking about. The item orb. Some enemies will drop item orbs when they're defeated, and when they do, you have to attack the item orb in order to get a bunch of stuff to appear, such as rupees, if you're not playing on hero mode, hearts, and in the case of choo-choos, they drop multiple of their colored Jew jelly. So it might be smarter to not steal from them and then wait for the item orb to drop in order to get multiple pieces of Chew Jelly instead of just stealing and getting one. Because if you do steal from them, they can't drop it at all, even if it's from an item orb. Which is kinda lame, but I guess it's the risk you take. And okay. Yeah, when you get hit by lava or anything fiery, roll or do a spin attack in order to make it so that you're not on fire anymore and you don't take continual damage. I am not playing as well as I should be. It doesn't really matter though. At least I don't think it'll matter. Because there will be chances to recover your health. Even though there aren't hearts, there's still other ways to get your health back. And I want to kill this guy in a very specific way. Well, at least in a very specific direction, so that his item doesn't drop off of the cliff. And hopefully he drops it. Yep. This is the golden feather. There's a side quest involving these, where basically there's one of the Ritos who asks you to get a bunch of golden feathers for his girlfriend or something like that, and you need 20, I think. I'm not going to be doing that, but just in case you want to do it, there you go. That's how you know. I'm going to be using them for their alternate use, which has to do with Beetle. If you take your spoils bag items to Beetle and show them to him, he'll actually buy them off of you. Depending on the item, he buys them for a certain price. Some of the more common items like Chew Jelly, he'll only buy for like 3 a piece or something like that, like 3 rupees per glob of jelly. But for something like the I forgot what they're called already, golden feathers, I think he'll buy them for like 5 each or something like that. I don't quite remember the prices. The only thing I ever sell is an item that we get a lot later in the game, so it's not that big of a deal right now. Nor is it that big of a deal for me to know exactly how much everything costs. You could just go to him and show him your items in order to actually see how much they cost. And speaking of things costing things, that was a great segue. Whoops, I bumped my mic. These little rats here, we can actually deal with them. I want to pause my game so I don't get hit by any of them. We can deal with them in a special way. If you drop bait near their hole, a rat will come out and he'll actually speak to you. You can buy things from him. You could either get, wow, either bait or a pear. That's not exactly what I wanted. Let's spread some more bait and see if he has anything else for sale. I'm pretty sure they have the item that I'm looking for at this point in the game. So there we go, that's what I wanted, a red potion. Very helpful. These rats will sell you things, and as you saw, it's kind of random what they sell. I think they only have a certain amount of things that they can sell, but you're not guaranteed to get that set of items for purchase, I guess you could say. Luckily, it just took 2 clumps of bait for me to get what I wanted. And that kind of goes into what I was saying earlier about how there's multiple ways to heal yourself in this game. Because now I'm not gonna die, pretty much. I have enough health to last me through the dungeon if either I do get hit or I don't get hit. I mean, obviously if I don't get hit, I'm not gonna die. What I'm trying to say is I can survive. I essentially have 2 sets of hearts right now. Well, more like I have 5 hearts, I guess I could say. Because you can't actually drink the potion after all your hearts are gone. It's not how it works. There's another bird here. I'm not going to deal with him. Just get out the way so I can grab the key. And that's something so useful in this game that some other games do and some other games don't. You can slash at items in order to pick them up. Like if there's rupees or hearts or something nearby, you don't have to walk up to them to grab them. That's something weirdly omitted in A Link to the Past. You can't actually slash to grab items, which is kind of weird and lame, honestly. Because in Zelda 1 and Zelda 2, that's how you grabbed certain items. Or rather, items out of your reach. Like those little bags of whatever they were called. Experience points, I guess, in Zelda 2, because Zelda 2 is weird like that. I don't want to hear any beeping anytime soon. And I don't want to see Link looking all tired, so let's drink that potion so that... Oh, I need that stick again. So that I don't have to look at his face being all sad and whatever. Exhausted, that was the word I was looking for. Another cool thing that this dungeon does is that it's not just rooms filled with lava. There's also a bunch of rooms that are inside like cooler caves, I guess you could say. Speaking of, I don't understand how we can survive in here without some heat resistant stuff, but whatevs. And there's sections where you're outside, which I think is really cool. This room you have to kill all of the bokoblins, as I recall, in order to open the door at the end. And hopefully there's some in these pots. I don't want to do that. I want to swing my sword. I was trying to swing the other sword, like do a spin attack with it, but it's not finicky. It's just that I don't do it right most of the time. And there's another one. I think there's also one in this pot up here, so if we just roll into the wall, there we go. And I should equip my joy pendant so that I can see how many I have at all times. Let's see here. Currently I have 5, so I'm a fourth of the way there in terms of how many you need to beat the game. Let's light up these torches. I'm not sure if this gives me a key or not. It probably does. I already have the dungeon map and the compass, I think. Although that chest doesn't look like one that gives you a key. I think this might actually be a treasure chart. And yeah, it is. Treasure charts are basically what's on the tin. They have locations on them that are not really difficult to see. Basically, when you have a treasure chart in your possession, you can go into your map screen and open that treasure chart. And when you do, it will show you a location, and at that location you can dig up treasure. Well, not really dig it up, more like salvage treasure while out on the ocean. And sometimes you might get some cool stuff like, I don't know, a piece of heart or something like that. And I do not like this room because of this guy specifically. Sometimes treasure charts might have pieces of heart, sometimes they'll have something like another chart inside that specifies something else, like where the great fairies are or something like that. I actually don't think that's one of the charts. I think one of them shows where all the heart piece locations are actually, which is pretty interesting. But I'm not going to be using the treasure charts for the most part. There are some that I have to use in order to get through the game, but otherwise I'm just going to be skipping out on whatever they have for me. And if I blow this up, I think I missed one of the pots in the game, or rather in this level, dungeon, I don't know what to call it, dungeon. But now that I blew that rock up, we actually have a warp back to the beginning. And because we have that warp, I think this is a good place to stop for now. I almost blew myself up. But we're more than halfway through the dungeon, so next time we'll get through the rest of it. And hopefully I'll be able to do some side questing after, because there's some extra stuff that I want to get that will make my life so much easier when it comes to doing this Let's Play.